Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm recording this on a Wednesday morning, February 13th. This is going to be posted on February 14th. So happy Valentine's Day. Hope you have a better one than some of Al Capone's friends did. Anyway, pardon me, I have a twisted sense of humor. This video is about love. There's a lot of stuff going around about unconditional love, unconditional love, unconditional love. What is that exactly? And also, I'm reading a book right now about abundance through Reiki. Is the title, and it's a pretty good book. I disagree with some minor points she has, but overall, it's very good. It's gotten me a little bit more into my Reiki practice again, back into it, and it talks about love. Problem is, there are different kinds of love. Everyone knows that, right? But we only have one word for it in the English language. So it's hard to tell sometimes which kind of love people are talking about. They might say, not every kind of love. Well, when you're reading some authors tend to assume that their readers are going to know what they're talking about, but that's not always the case. They don't always understand what they're talking about. And in other cultures, I'm sure there's many words for love. That's what I've heard, at least. I don't really know anything about that factual, so I'm not going to really refer to anything. Can't talk what I don't know about, right? What I'm going to talk about here, though, is the Greeks had three words for love: agape, eros, and philia. Agape is a term you may have heard before, especially among Christians. It's basically a love for fellow humans, for fellow humankind. What Sister Teresa practiced was basically a good example of agape. Another word for it could be simple passion for fellow human beings. Philia is brotherly love, family love. The city of Philadelphia, city of brotherly love, which was founded originally by members of the Society of Friends, aka the Quakers. Now, also, and of course, eros is the love we have for a mate. C.S. Lewis wrote a book called The Four Loves. For those of you who don't know much about C.S. Lewis, a lot of people just know him as the author of the Chronicles of Narnia and think he's just a writer. Well, he was actually a professor at both Oxford and Cambridge, mostly Oxford, I think. In fact, it was Oxford where he came to know another. He was in the literary department there, and he was pretty much an apologist, a philosopher, and but mostly interliterature and so forth, and quite a medievalist too. Knew a lot about Arthurian legend, and he wrote probably as many nonfiction books as he did fiction. Like I said, most know the Chronicles of Narnia. He was a devout Christian, Anglican, I believe, and he just kind of drew from general fantasy there because that wasn't really his forte too much. He did have a friend at Oxford who was quite the expert in Nordic mythology, taught classes on Beowulf, and drew from that and wrote his own trilogy. That friend was J.R.R. Tolkien. There was the story goes that every Thursday you could see him in the corner of a nearby pub, a pub that was close to Oxford, and they would be spouting about philosophy or fantasy books or whatever, and over their little pints of Guinness. But I don't know, I just would have loved to sit on one of those conversations. Anyway, but he also wrote some nonfiction books. He wrote also a trilogy simply called the Space Trilogy. So that's adult fiction. It's fantasy, but it's adult. I don't mean adult as in pornographic or anything like that, but it's adult level fiction. It's really very good. If you get a chance to read the books. The three books are Out of the Silent Planet, which takes place on Mars; Paralandra, which takes place on Venus. In fact, Paralandra is the universal tongue for Venus. If you want to know what the universal tongue is, you're going to have to read the books. And then the third book takes place on Earth. It's called That Hideous Strength. Three very good books. And he also wrote, like I said, some nonfiction books too. There was another fiction book called Pilgrim's Regress. That was more of it's a very simple story. You can tell it's a philosophical parable, I should say. There are other a book he did, one called The Four Loves, and it talks like the Greek aspect, but also let me see, I got that up here real quick. The four loves were friendship, eros, affection, and charity. So he kind of categorized things a little bit differently. I was thinking about this the other day, though, and I came up with my own four loves here. Whoops, I'm on the wrong page. Hopefully I'm still going here. Yes, I am. Good. So I had my own... this is my own musings, basically. This may cross over to some other books. I haven't read other books on these categorizations or anything like that. I don't mean to... oh, I forgot to start the music. There we go. And those of you who are Lorena Kennett fans will recognize this music. We got it going here. This is The Lady of Shalott, based, of course, on the poem by Tennyson. And this is, anyway, so we got nice love music going on in The Lady of Shalott. And we got this story now. I think it might be a little bit too loud. Get it down there. Okay, so, I call this basically the 9 loves. This is just, like I said, some philosophical musings I had. It might cross over some things other people have written. Apologies if they do. So I've come out basically with 9 loves. Self-love, parental love, sibling love, sire love, friend love, mate love, agape love, and familiar love, and environmental love, which could also be called love of life. Now, what does this boil down to? Self-love. Self-love we pretty much understand. Love of self. Not to be confused with narcissism. Narcissism is really more like self-infatuation, an obsession with the self, vanity. Vanity is a part, I think, of narcissism. And it's a sign of narcissism, but that's not necessarily self-love. Self-love just means being comfortable with yourself, seeing yourself as a good person. You know, there's not quoting the Bible directly here, but I should have looked up the scripture beforehand because I'm usually pretty good about doing that. However, we know that, it says, love others as you love yourself. Well, if you don't love yourself, then how can you love others? Think about it. So self-love is important. We have to feel good about ourselves so we can go out and do good works. The next one is sort of a breaking down of philia, which is brotherly love. I think that needs to be done in 3 categories in itself. So I've got parental, sibling, and sire. Parental love is the love a parent has for the child. Also, and I need to backpedal a little bit here. I want to say, when I see this, there is a universal energy of love, but that energy occurs on different frequencies. And I believe, my musings here, I would classify all these as frequencies of love. And then with each frequency, there's different intensities, of course. Now, going back to this, parental love, the love a parent has for a child, or a grandparent for a grandchild, or an uncle or aunt for a nephew or niece. Once again, it's going to be more intense for immediate family than I suppose grandparents, a little bit less, but still there, aunt and uncle. You get the idea. Now, sibling love, obviously, love for brother and sister, or for cousins too. And sire love is the love a child has for parents, and also for the grandchildren for grandparents, the niece or nephew for the aunt or uncle. Basically, so it's the love we have for our family, and of course, the intensity doesn't just depend on what part of the family. Is it immediate family or extended family? Is it depends on how a child was raised, depends on the person themselves. Some people have more strained relationships with their parents than others do. From that, we go to friend love. Friend love, pretty obvious love we have for our close friends. And that can actually cross over, I believe, to the frequency can change. Some of these frequencies can change. And the frequency of friend love can actually change to sibling love if it's intense enough and becomes close enough. The vibration can become similar and more similar until it actually is the same as sibling love. Now, beyond that, we have what would equate to eros, which is mate love. Not to be confused with sexual love itself, or physical love. We're talking emotions here. So this is, of course, the love we have for mate. Once again, friend love, if it's intense enough and so forth, the vibration can change to it's actually mate love. Also, mate love can change its vibration to to friend love. And some of these vibrations we have some control over too. Some of them we don't. We may have to settle for friend love when we actually feel the mate love. I think we've all been in that situation before. The vibration doesn't necessarily change suddenly. It has to change over time, and sometimes we have to nurture that change. Now, something else needs to come up here is what I call familiar love. Other people could call it pet love. I don't like referring to an animal companion as a pet. So you could call it, companion love sounds more like mate love. That could be considered companion love. The term companion is a little bit too generic for me, really. I say familiar because, of course, that's what animal companions to witches and wizards were called familiars, because they're very close companions. It implies a very close relationship. So I call it familiar love. And of course, the love we have for a pet, for a dog or a cat, for an animal. One that's actually close to us, that lives with us. Not just, they say, well, I really like lions, or I really like tigers. I like tigers, I love tigers, but I don't have one in my house. You might, I don't know. But you get the idea there. It's the love we have for our animal companions. Now, the next level would be agape. Again, just basically the same as I discussed before. Love of humankind. Compassion for our fellow man or woman. Now, that's 8. Last one I call environmental love. It could also be called love of life. First I called it nature love, but I realized that wasn't enough. And we're talking about environment, we talk about, some people, that's their home. They love their home life. Well, talk about loving the city you're in. Talk about loving trees, mountains, deserts, ocean. The animals are out there, dolphins. I love dolphins. Bears, coyotes, hawks, eagles, doves, crows, ravens. You get the idea. But it goes beyond that. It can be loving your hometown, loving the town you're in, loving the city you're in, a love of art, a love of music, something you feel passionate about. And that's where I think that passion is where we have that connection with our surroundings, with the music that surrounds us, with all the other things that surround us in our lives. That's why I call it environmental love. It's love for our environment in general. It's very similar to agape, but it applies to everything else other than humans. That is like I said, environmental love, or just call it the love of life. And that, in a nutshell, is what I call the 9 loves. Thank you very much for listening. Happy Valentine's Day. And just remember, if you've got it great today, there's someone else who's got having a crappy day. Keep them in your thoughts too. Take care.